There you go. There's the man on timing. Watching up. I got some rings here.
Hey everybody, welcome back out to the National Players Club Garage Pod. Sitting here with Aaron Kilgore of the East Coast Meat Puppets.
Self-proclaimed fantasy guru. just roll with it. It is what it is.
Also sitting here with the East Coast Lanterns, Mr. Shocker himself, Kevin. We've got Coach Trudy of the Show Me the TDs and DK Comics coach, Devin, sitting in with us tonight.
Our soundbite man in the nosebleed seats.
Soundbite man in the nosebleed seats.
Sound guy and drink runner tonight.
Drink runner.
Second tour of duty. What's this, your third, fourth?
What?
Your third, fourth year?
Second. I coached with him.
The first year.
And you and I are the long-term veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you've been.
I'm like an old man on that.
Yeah, you're old man to begin with. So.
I'm at 5 years.
Yeah,
this is
got
my
my
5th year.
talk.
So
this is my
6th
year.
year.
Yeah.
So sitting here with a vet, claiming vet, a couple of rookies, myself. I just coached, not claiming jack. And we're here to go over week one's F-bombs and score analysis, and
we got injury reports
coming up for week 2, projections for week 2. So we're going to jump right in here and just get rolling.
Yeah, all kinds of good stuff. Normally we're going to have an outline for all this stuff. We'd like to have done a garage pod after the draft. Everyone had kind of a chaotic week, so we're going to go real briefly through instead of going through everyone's entire draft and picking it apart, we're just going to go over the first round and see how everyone's first round picks held up in week 1. We got some injuries that are already taking their toll in week 1 on some pretty substantial players.
Big time injuries.
We're going to go over the wins and losses of week 1. Now, granted, we mix it up a little bit, so there's people moving around, and there's not a whole lot of separation because if you've got 6 teams, 3 are going to win, 3 are going to lose, so you basically have 3 tied first, so on and so forth, via the point total. So there is a first, second, and third, fourth, fifth, and sixth in each round. So we'll cover that. We'll cover matches up for next week and any potential pitfalls that you may be walking into if you haven't already listened to any lesser podcasts, I should say.
Watch out for the Gators.
Hey, a quick shout out to our 2 listeners in Alaska. Love you guys.
It's the Seawolves. It's not a professional team. It's semi-pro, so to the Seawolves. Hope you guys are watching again this season.
L'chaim.
Done. Wolfpack. Round 1, we had a number of holdovers. We had a number of people that had holdovers that opted, because of the position they were sitting in, to opt out and take better players. We had people that had multiple first-round holdovers that had to drop people, namely Erica holding on to LaShawn McCoy and Tom Brady. We had Bernie sitting with Calvin Johnson and Aaron Rodgers. You had Brandon, who was basically Breeze was on the bubble. He was definitely 3 in the second, but he was on a bubble on the first with Breeze. And some people kind of weighed out the first round, decided maybe this person might drop to me, and made some moves.
Although at the end of the day, I think I had the best overall deal going into that pick with AP dropping to the 5th round. He's a perennial first-round pick, and I was able to snatch him up in the 5th round.
So that was real good, and I'll give you a hard second in walking into the as far as a holdover in this year's draft, but I've got to give it to Gordo because he gets Julio Jones in the 8th. And as you cannot deny.
As a rookie, but
I know, but I'm saying you cannot deny getting a first round, a hands down first round. Arguably, now that we've seen it after week 1, the clear cut number 1 wide receiver out of the draft as an 8th round pick.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're definitely right, especially because he came back, with his injuries, and the fact they sat him week 1, and they were having questions about him, and what he did obviously proved that he is back 110%.
And I am no longer listening to Leslie Frazier up in Minnesota saying that he's only going to get 15 touches.
Well, you know what? I'd even take him with 15 touches based on the way he looks.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to round 1. Trudy actually started off. She decided to use her holdover elsewhere, right? With your
quarterback.
Your quarterback, that's right. Yeah, Matt Stafford. And this was a key setup, too, because you walked in with Matt Stafford as your holdover, and you ended up with the first round overall pick. And with Bernie knowing that she was going to hold over Aaron Rodgers, you basically were able to snatch up Calvin Johnson in the first round.
And handcuff him.
and handcuff him to have that 1-2 combo wide receiver combination. Not a bad turnout. He came out with 20 points with a projected 31, still reasonable. You talking double digits?
And that was
you know,
without
no
touchdown.
Injuries.
They
And,
got no
with no touchdown.
together.
Yeah,
no touchdown, just off a sheer. And I'll tell you something. And I'm looking at these totals. Everyone put up near or over 100 points. Now, granted, it's the first week, so everyone's relatively healthy. But you see the difference that full point PPR is making on these wide receivers. It makes a huge difference on some of these guys that just may not get those touchdowns, but you still got 20 points off that.
Well, it's also
Exactly.
making up the quarterback drop. We dropped 2 points off of a quarterback touchdown. It's now a 4-point touchdown. And there was a lot of skepticism about it and back and forth on it, but it's actually paying off in the long run to drop that and make it a full 1-point PPR, because now you're getting more value out of that wide receiver
And
per
I
catch.
think it's definitely leveling some off and giving it's a lot more competitive than what I've seen.
The games are going to start getting a lot closer than what they have been.
Also, I think with a lot of teams in the NFL now going to running back by committee, you know, it used to be before Clint joined, or right about the time he joined up, you know,
Running backs
were
it was
priority.
first round was running back.
Running back. Yeah.
Wide receiver, quarterback, running back.
Exactly. So I mean, your premium
That
nowadays
was
on
my
draft
first year.
is your wide receiver and quarterback, especially if you can handcuff them like Trudy did. You know, so
And with the durability of the running backs right now, even if they are
Absolutely.
a clear-cut number one running back that's getting 70% of the carries, and let's say it's even 20 to 25, touches a game, which is huge. It's durability over the entire season, and how many times they're getting smacked versus a wide receiver getting bumped off of a safety or a corner.
exactly. For example, I mean, and we'll touch this later. DeMarco Murray with the Dallas Cowboys, who's a clear-cut number one running back for that. I mean, Felix Jones will be lucky to see any touches this year.
Especially the way he played in week one.
Exactly, and I drafted him.
Not talk to the Cowboys week one, by the way.
Thank you.
But he's injury report. He's wrist injury on that. So
Yeah, they're going to get banged up, and you have to look if you're drafting a running back these days in rounds 1 and early rounds 2, you almost have to handcuff them, or at least be keeping an eye on that handcuff, because that person, if that goes down, that other person with them out now becomes a clear-cut number one with all of the carries, and even if they're not, like I took Ben Tate in the 8th, and I used a holdover to snag him, because if Aaron Foster goes out, this guy's still going to look at 22 carries a game. And I don't care who you are, you're still getting your hands on the ball that often.
And I can only hope that DeMarco Murray goes down. Sorry, Clint. And then that makes the value for Felix Jones being a lot higher. So.
Hey, as long as Felix Jones carries the ball like he's supposed to, I won't complain. I'm more the wide
But we've seen
receiver
Felix Jones carry the ball, and there's another
Good
whole
luck
argument
with
there altogether. So we're not going to.
The other thing I'm
that road
seeing
just yet.
with the running back situation, with a lot of teams, they're actually turning, which is kind of a good thing. If you can pull the multiple running backs like Arian Foster and Ben Tate, I've grabbed Darren Sproles and Mark Ingram, who are 1 and 2 for New Orleans, which New Orleans started last year with pass-heavy running backs. They're pulling them to the outside and dumping the ball off. They're getting that extra point in the PPR league, and they're getting the yardage. So, I mean...
Yeah, and you definitely like that full point, because that's something that you get that full point for that reception. Well, that running back has to get at least 10 yards
just
before
to get
he
a
gets
point.
the point.
Yep.
So, I mean, that when you're going down at the end of the game, when you're neck and neck with somebody and you need 1 point, and you're sitting at 1 yard, you need 9 more to get it, and all of a sudden you get one dump play and they stop him, you got your 1 point.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the second pick in the first round, Mike. Again, we look at another handcuff. We love you, Mike. I really appreciate you taking Michael Vick overall as the number 1 pick last year. It didn't work out that well for you.
He looks good this year.
Any event, but again, with Erica having to give up one of her top 2 players, LaShawn McCoy finds himself available. Mike sitting there in the 2nd overall pick with a holdover on Michael Vick in like the now 5th, I think, 4th or 5th, maybe 5th. He snatches up LaShawn McCoy, a receiving back, and someone that was pretty durable throughout the entire year last year and put up mad points and receiving yards, which now with 4-point PPR adds much value to him. He walked into last week at 24 overall projected points and scored 20. Again, you got reasonable reduction out of your number 1 holdover, or your number 1 overall pick. Moving on, in 3rd place, we got Aaron Rodgers. We get our first actual holdover. Bernie locked in her quarterback. You can't deny when you're looking at Rodgers and Brady as the top 2 just elite quarterbacks, even if you're getting 4 points per touchdown and they're throwing 5 or 6 touchdowns a game, you're still getting your yardage. You're still getting, the points.
And especially if, because a lot of people put a premium on Drew Brees actually being the #1 overall quarterback to come out of the fantasy draft. And his poor production in week 1, they may have some serious problems there in New Orleans. So,
yeah, well, when you got Double as the head coach / whatever else.
Yeah, the guy.
Not only that, you kind of have to be careful on how your defense works because now they're looking at you like
and they gave
any hit, be it a late hit or dropping the shoulder too early or something, they're going to start picking and choosing at that,
and especially with the scab referees and
out of
for whatever reason, Roger Goodell, if you happen to watch this podcast, get the regular referees in. I mean,
you know what?
We've seen it.
For all things being equal, I'd say I'd give it
Monday
I'd give it like a 70-30 split. 70% of the fact that I think it actually went. With all things considered, now granted there was a lot of holding, there were certain, but there I didn't see an overwhelming majority of incidences that would have changed the course of the particular games that went down.
But at the end of the day, and I do have to side with one of the commentators that were calling the games over the weekend. It says, the regular referees know the players, and they know what they're going to do. They
know how to watch.
They know how to call the game, and they know these players and they know how to call for those particular players.
Same time, if there's bad calls, if they're doing generally overall, hey, there's a lot of grabbing going on. There's a lot of holding calls being called. They're being called on both sides. Doesn't seem to be any favoritism. If they're bad calls, they're bad calls across the board. If they're good calls, they're good calls across the board. If they're letting them play, if they're not letting them play one way or another, it seems rather.
Well, I think the big hit, and we'll get off this here after this, but I think it'll really come back to bite these officials when you have a marquee player go down on a bad hit. They don't.
But that's the player's fault. That's not the.
No, if they don't call the hit for whatever reason, because they're as
you
fast
have
as this
officials
game.
up on the board that are taking care of it.
But they're not gonna call those kind of hits.
I'm more worried about the guys being able to run down the sidelines with these wide receivers and keep up with these players and be able to watch that interference call down the field. I'm pretty sure the guys in the backfield are keeping an eye on the quarterbacks. That's the big thing that we're looking at.
But to settle this, at the end of the day, we all want to see Ed Hockey lead back.
Yeah, there's something about watching a 7-year-old man with his belt straps up to here,
yes,
just swimming in his jersey, trying to call stuff out on his microphone, as opposed to Ed Hockley, that's 3 times the size of most NFL players are out there, and he even scares the people he's making. He's all like, "Yeah, that's the call." What?
What are you gonna do?
2 minutes.
Fourth. We're gonna get down to. I'll do a quick little fire on these last 2, and then we'll take a little break. In 4th round, we got another holdover with Fitzgerald. Christina, and held over her wide receiver. He was coming in at projected 18 points, ranked 10, and that ranks in there with our bombs of the week. Doesn't top it, but it will be coming in there, and we'll address that with what's coming up with him this week. Lastly, in this particular section, we've got Tom Brady. Obviously, Erica yanked him out from underneath years ago and still has him. Came in with a projected 34, only put up 17. Still lost my game. I've got issues. I'm jaded, and we'll talk about that soon.
We'll be right back, guys. Stick around.